Welcome, welcome. I hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. Um, Thanks for joining. I hope everyone took the time to review the previous class and played around with the formulas, what we learned, the challenge that I provided as well. Because again, the more time you spend with Excel, the better you understand it and the more powerful it will be for you. So practice. That's all I'm going to tell you. And for those who have a function, whether it's in work or even you want to organize your house, I know I'm going on a trip tomorrow, so create lists and keeping track of things. If you do it in Excel, there's a lot of benefit to it, and especially if you know how to do it, it's even more exciting. So use Excel and you practice what we learned, and that's the only way that you'll get it and you'll remember it and you'll be able to use it. So that being said, today we begin the second module of the three module program for Excel. We are coming to the end, coming closer and closer to the end of this Microsoft Office course. Hope everyone's been enjoying it. I have been enjoying it. I've been learning quite a few things as I was going to, so it's been exciting for me too. I wish I was able to meet everyone in person, but I guess this is the next best thing. So I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Let me jump right in here. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we are going to create. Now, knowing what we know about Excel, I'm going to show you a sheet that looks really really normal, no big deal about it. And then I'll show you all the secret calculations and all the secret stuff that are going on behind it. Just give me 1 second here. Let me share my screen. What's going on here? There we go. Okay. Share screen. Okay. You're all looking at this very boring looking sheet. It's almost exactly what we did last time. But I'm sure you already are aware. Let me just open up all my tools here. Sorry for Zoom, just so I don't miss everything. I have everything up in front. Okay, so you take a look at this sheet here, Klapor Engineering Salary Report. Looks pretty straightforward, right? But if we look under the hood, I'll show you how to do this, but it's a cool trick. Oh, here we go. This is under the hood. Look at what's going on in this sheet. If you notice, there's very few columns in here that have no calculation whatsoever. So we have the name. If you notice, the email address, those are all hyperlinked. And I'm also going to show you, it's called a flash fill, where Excel has this intelligence that it can pick up a pattern and actually complete many fields in a row automatically for you. We have a formatted column here where I created rules in those cells to color code based on certain criteria that it hits. This I enter, but then the gross pay. So we have a gross pay that I have to figure out. I have federal tax that I need to deduct. I have the state tax percentage, the net pay, the hire date also. Here's the max, min, average. All these are all calculations that we will learn in this class. Basically, we're gonna learn how to create a formula from scratch, to write out your own formula. Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna return the sheet back to normal, and there you go. Voila. Now it just looks like a regular Excel file, which, unless you know Excel, you can't really appreciate what's going on in the back end, that these numbers are just a facade of what's going on behind. So with that being said, now that you know what we'll be learning, let's go ahead and open a new file. All right. Just FYI, I hope everyone did get the did get the email. I sent it out, I think, about 3 o'clock today. Just with, I included this time, I also included a few little like tips for Excel. Basically walks you through, number one, it included the data that we're going to enter here as well. And it also walks you through a little bit explanation as far as the functionality of the different types of equations that we have in Excel. Okay. Real quick, I got a little feedback from a few different students that you couldn't see the bottom here. So let me try this little trick, and then if you can, just give me confirmation. Even do it in the chat, just so it doesn't fill up the Q&A. Just give me confirmation that you are able to see my small bar after I try this trick. Okay, so what I did, I closed, I removed it from full view. So now you see this bar here. So like I told you before, this is my bottom ribbon, and I have all these equations here, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. You could add your average, the count, the minimum, maximum, and sum, okay? So that is what I was referring to in last class, because I got a lot of feedback that I believe it was this field, this part of the screen that was invisible. So there it is. Hopefully you can see that. So I just wanted to take a moment and show you that part. Hopefully everyone can see that. Please let me know. Good. Okay, so I figured out the problem. So now moving forward, if I want to show you that part again, I'll know what I have to do. Otherwise, I'm going to keep the screen to full zoom so that it takes up, it's more visible and it's easier to see. Okay, thank you for that confirmation there. All right, let's go for it. So remember, we're dealing with sheets defaulted. We always get one sheet. It's called sheet 1 and book 1. And default, it always starts in our column A, row 1, okay? I don't know if you did get a chance to look at the papers I did send you, but we're going to be entering a bunch of different names of employees. So we could go ahead first. We're going to enter the Klapoor Engineering. Okay, I spelled that wrong. There we go. Just press enter. Oh, okay, yeah. So let me go ahead and zoom, especially since. Oh, okay. I think if I like it when I show the ribbon, show tabs. There we go. Okay. I like it when it's dropped down here. By the way, just if you remember, you have control of the ribbon display. You have auto hide, show tabs, or show tabs and commands. I like show tabs and commands because just otherwise I keep jumping back and forth because I don't always remember where things are exactly. Okay, so A1, I write Klapoor Engineering. I could just use my arrows to go down to A2 and I write salary report. Okay, then we're gonna go to A3, employee. Okay, then I'm gonna move over. I'm gonna click my right arrow and I'm gonna move to B3 and I'm gonna write email address. That's spelled incorrectly. Now I'm gonna write the next one, dependence. And then I'm gonna go to D3. I'm gonna type hours. I'm gonna do, oh, sorry. Okay, we're gonna type hours here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold the Alt and Enter together, okay? Alt, Enter. And what that does is it now basically creates another line under the first line in the same cell, okay? Because if I just press Enter by itself, it takes me to the cell below it. But I want to keep this in the same cell, but I want to have hours on top, and right under that, I want to write worked. Okay, and that's what it looks like. You see? You see the difference here? Don't worry, we're going to do that again. Again, I'm going to type hourly. Now, if I press Enter, that's what happens. I don't want to press I want it to go the line under the same cell. So I'm going to type hourly while I'm active in the cell. So make sure you have to be active in the cell. Otherwise, it will not do that function in the cell itself. Then I do Control, Enter, not Control, sorry. Alt, Enter, there we go. Alt, Enter, and now I have that second line, and I type in pay rate. Okay, press Enter, and I could just move my arrows over, see here, move my arrows over, and I'm gonna continue. I got gross pay in cell F3. Now, remember, I'm naming these cells out loud, but remember, you have this little name box here that tells you exactly the cell you're in. So if you're trying to keep track, you don't have to like count and see, okay, G3, you could just look right in the corner there and see if you are in the right cell that I'm announcing. The next one is F3. What am I doing? See, I missed something. E3, right, okay, sorry. Now I'm in G3. G3 is federal tax. Federal tax. Okay, then I want to be in H3. I'm going to type state tax. Then I'm going to type in I3. I'm going to type tax percentage. Okay, so tax, then I'm going to put the percentage sign. So that's shift. Hold the shift button down, and right above the 5, you have the percentage. Click on that, and you have your tax percentage. Then in J3, I'm going to type net pay. And in K3, I'm going to type hire date. Okay, so what you should be looking at is on row 3, you have the cells filled from A to K. Okay, so if you have A to K on row 3, we're all on the same page here. Okay, now we're going to move back to cell A4. Okay, A4, I'm going to start typing names. So if you have that list of names already, you can start typing them out. I'll just say it out loud anyway. This is Altor Benny. Now it's important that you keep the same formula, and I will tell you why. Okay, now. All right, Benny Alto, and then I'm going to go to C4, and I'm going to type 3, because they have 3 dependents. And then I'm going to go to D4, and I'm going to type 74.50. 0.50 is how many hours they worked. And then I'm going to go to E4, which is their hourly pay rate, and I'm going to do 35.25. Okay? Then I'm going to keep going all the way to our hire date. Okay? And I'm going to do 9, or you could do like this, 09-05-2010, press enter, and there you go. Okay. Just gonna drink something. All right, so now we filled it out for Benny Altor. They got 3 dependents. They got hours worked, hourly rate, and the hire date, okay? Now, what I wanna do is, there's a few defaults that, depending on the format, there are a few defaults that Excel will do. For example, I typed in 74.50, but it only did 5. So when there's sometimes in the general format, if there's extra zeros, it removes the zeros. Now you could always add them by just adding more decimal points, okay? But default, if it's a 0, it normally will just go to 50. 5, we'll get rid of any extra zeros there. So here by the date, okay, here by the date, you, I don't like the 2010, I wanna shorten that, okay? So how do I shorten the format of this date? It just defaults to that, but I don't want it 9/5/2010. I want it 9, 5, 10, okay? So what are we gonna do? I'm gonna right click, okay? And I'm gonna format cells, okay? So I'm gonna go right click and format cells. And I'll wait for my, okay. So notice, number one, right away, my category, the date is highlighted because when I type this into Excel, Excel recognizes as a date. So it converted, and if you look here on top, by the way, the formula is date. I didn't set it as date because this whole sheet was all general, but Excel, since I entered it into as a date format, it automatically converted that cell into a date format. So now when I press format cell, it automatically is already highlighted on the date category. Now, if you notice, the sample is showing me what it currently is based on the selection below. Now, if you look how many different ways you could select the way the date is presented on the file. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the 3412, the one that has only a 2-digit year as well, okay? But if you look here, you could do a long date. Well, let's say you want to see also the day of the week. You could flip it around. You could do the year first, which is common in everywhere but America. So you could do the month. You could do, excuse me. You could even include the time of day as well. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to do the 2-digit year, and there you have it. Okay? So I'm now going to go back to row A5, and I'm going to continue this entries. Okay, so if you did, so Mary, if anyone did select the cell format cells, if it's not selected, if you notice here, let's say it went to default general, just go ahead and select the date format. So you want to select the date in the column here because there's many different types of format that you could set up. And as you select these, you'll see the sample. You'll see the sample of what the cell would look like if you were to select that category as is, okay? So just make sure when you're formatting cells, the date category is selected, okay? I'll do it again for the other dates as well, but let's go ahead and move now. Just bear with me here. I'm just gonna go through the same order in which I did Bernie, Alta or Bernie. I'm gonna do with the next names. Again, I believe I included the employee, that information in the PDF that I sent you. You could go ahead with that if that works for you. Otherwise, we'll just do it together. Okay, Linda Fox, she has one dependent. She worked 80 hours. She gets 33.10 cents an hour, and she was hired on 10/17/12. Now, if you notice, I haven't converted that date yet. I'm going to wait till the end, so I'm going to change all of them all at the same time, which is just much easier instead of doing each one by itself. Okay, Jermaine Hanfield. He has, I'm assuming it's a he, sorry. He has 0 dependents. He works 71.75 hours. Wow. I mean, these people are really pushing overtime here. That's for 1 week. 2865 is the hourly rate, and they were hired February 2nd, 2213. Okay, I'm just gonna click back in the beginning. Then we have Jamie. I don't know if that's Jamie Ben. He's got 2 dependents. He worked 60 hours. He works 60 hours and he gets paid $18 an hour, and he was hired 1/15/16. Then we have Nacht. I don't know if that's the proper pronunciation again. Savannah Nacht. She has 1 dependent. That does not look like one to me, sorry. One dependent. She worked 42.25 hours worked, and she gets paid $25.90 an hour and was hired 5/18/12. Okay, now I'm at cell A9 right now, and this person's name is Pitfield Joel. Joel Pitfield. Sure, it's I before E. That's what I thought. I before E. I don't know if that would get picked up as a spelling mistake. 0 dependents. He worked last week 75 hours, 75.75 hours. He gets paid $21.95 an hour, and he was hired in the wonderful date of 05/24/13. And then we are now at A10. A10, this man's name is Jill, or this woman's name is Jill Spalding. Jill Spalding. They have 3 dependents. They worked 80 hours. They get paid $32.50 an hour, and they were hired. 11. What a date to be hired. Okay, Tillman. Steve Tillman has 2 dependents. He works 64.50 hours. He gets paid $41.02, and he was hired on 04/29/06. Now, notice again, I'm typing in 04, but it's getting rid of that extra 0. Okay, and the last person we have on our list is Wilson Olga. Okay, she has 1 dependent. She worked 68 hours last week, or whatever the week that we're talking about. Apparently it's last week. And she gets paid $29.43. And she was hired 09/22/17. And this is what your cell should be looking like right now. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and update these formats. So let's say before I did one single format, but here I want to do multiple format. I want to highlight all these cells. So we're talking here, by the way, hold on a second. Let me show you. Look. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to tell you how many cells we're holding, right? So, okay. How many cells is this? 1, 2, 3. No, just look at the bottom. I selected 9 cells, but I only want to select 8 cells. So here I select there, and there's my count right there. And if you notice the sum, there really is no true sum. It just the max. The max, I guess, it's just a random choice because there is no logic. They're all dates. Okay, so now I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna select format cells, okay? Format cells, this brings up, now again, if you defaulted to general category, that's fine. Let's go to date selection, and I'm going to select a 3/4/12 selection, and right away I see a sample is choosing one of my selections, which is the top one. See 10, 17, 12. It's showing me what this is going to look like. So I press OK, and voila, it is now shortened the year and only giving me a 2-digit year as well. Okay, and that is how I changed the format of the style of that cell. Okay, so now I'm going to take a deep breath. Okay, so I just see a few questions here. Avi, as far as the Alt Enter, it will look like you are actually typing on the lower cell, but when you press Enter, you'll see it'll pop up to the regular cell. So it's a little deceiving. And you know what, Jack? Thank you. Jack gives a shout out to Save Our Work. Let's go for it. I guess they decided they tell you when to save. I think we worked hard enough. Let's go ahead and save this. So let's go to File. I'm going to select Save As. Okay, and we're going to save this as, excuse me. You could save it however you want, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose also the folder that I want to save it in. Come on. Save it in my MS Office class. Microsoft Excel, Module 2, and we're going to do SC underscore EX underscore 2 underscore Klapor. Okay, remember here, make sure it's an Excel workbook. You could add a tag, add a title. I'm going to go ahead and save, and it will take me back to my work. Okay, let me just answer a few questions here. Okay, Jacob, can you show the reverse on the date? Again, if you want to manipulate the style of that date, you're going to right-click, select Format, Cell, and then you have the categories here. You select Date, and here you have all your selections to choose the type, how you want that date to be viewed on your Excel file, how you want it to show. So we selected the 3/14/12, but you could choose whatever you'd like. Okay, Chai, I'll show you one more time again how to do that double line. Okay, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to do hourly, and then I'm going to select Alt Tab, not Alt, what am I doing? Sorry. Alt Enter. Now I gotta highlight it again. You may Alt Enter, and now it pops up again. It gives me my second line, and I write hourly rate. I press Enter, and there I have my second line to it. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and continue, and I see there's a few more questions, but we will get to them as I move here. Okay, so now we are going to enter an email address, okay? And while we're gonna enter this email address, we're also going to learn how to do a flash fill, okay? So check it out. Excuse me. So we're gonna standardize the way we have an email. You know, if you work in a company, they usually do your first name or your last name and your first initial, or your first name with your last initial, your last name initial, whatever that format is. So in this company, they do the first letter of your name and your first and your entire last name. So we have B Altor, okay, B, so the first letter of his first name and his complete last name, B Altor at example.com. Now watch this. Right away, it's I'm gonna just double click here so you can see it completely. Okay, baltorexample.com. It automatically recognizes that this is a web address, and it will convert it to a hyperlink. Then I will do the same for Linda Fox. Now, so I take the first letter of her first name and her last name at Signal and example.com. Okay, so now I could sit here and doing this. I could continue doing this for each employee, but imagine if I had 100 employees here. they don't pay me enough to do this by every single employee. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to go here in editing, okay? And I'm going to highlight these cells, okay? I'm going to go to editing, and I'm just going to select, just click on this fill button. Fill down. Oops, no, sorry. Sorry, that's not what I want. Go like this. Then here, let's see, down. Oh no, that's what, oh, sorry, that's what it's doing. Flash fill. There we go. Let me, excuse me, let me do that again. So, there's, with the fill, I realize there's the standard fill. So if I wanted to duplicate, to fill out this cell below it or a bunch of them, I select the down fill. But what I want to select is this button here called Flash Fill, okay? Just click the Flash Fill, and look what it did, okay? Are you with me? I'm going to do it one more time. I'm selected on B5. Make sure you're selected on B5, so you see B5 up in the corner there, okay? And I'm going to go to my editing box by the home page. Editing box by my home page, and I have this fill button, okay? I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to have a flash fill button here, okay? I'm going to select the flash fill and watch what happens. Check it out. You see what it did? It copied the format of my email, and it did the exact same thing with all the names. Look, it took the first letter of the first name and the full last name, and then it created an email address out of it. So that is a very cool tool to use. So Anonymous is asking, sorry, I think I should know your name by now. Sorry. But what else can you use a flash fill for? So I'm just thinking of different ideas. Let's say you have a pattern that you want, that you're building out, or maybe you have a certain order of cells that you want to be consistent at a certain pattern. So that would be good for a flash fill. I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head, except for this scenario where basically you want to convert all your names into an email address, an email style. So instead of doing it, and that doesn't exist at all. So in order to replicate that, you would either have to sit there and literally type out every single email the way you want it, or you could just do a flash fill and it will duplicate your format. So I'm sorry, I can't think of any other examples. But if anyone has something, they could type it in, and then maybe it will resonate with me, and I could, if I understand it, I'll share it. Okay. So Khani, I think the question is, what happens if it didn't catch the first name? It only got the last name. So it's, make sure that your cells in in column A are exactly formatted. So make sure all your spacing is the same. Make sure that the comma is in the exact same place between the words. because if there's any difference in that, you may not see it because it may look all the same, but Excel will pick it up and just make that and just go with that slight difference in the other one. So that I think would be the best. That's what I would look for if I didn't get it exactly all across. Okay, so yes, Dennis, how do we avoid filling these here? Well, for starters, you could just delete it. But I think what you can do is what I did earlier is if you just highlight the cells you want to fill and flash fill, you'll just limit the flash fill to the cells that you do want. So good question. And so you could see both sides. So I pressed flash fill just generic and it filled everywhere it saw text. But if you want to limit it to a specific selection of cells, just highlight those cells before you select the flash fill. Okay, so Marguerite, I believe I just touched upon that, is that when you're doing a flash fill, if you don't limit the cells, it will just kind of duplicate it wherever there's an open cell with text. Because notice it didn't change this because this was already, there was already information in B3, but B1 and B2, there was text here, and so Excel figured, hey, maybe I would appreciate the flash fill in there, which I didn't. That's why I deleted it. Okay, and just one more here. So what if the emails are different? Again, in that scenario, flash fill may not help you. But there are other ways to go about that. I mean, we could talk about replacement and different things, but as far as a flash fill, that's probably not going to work for you. Okay, let's move along here. Okay, excuse me. Okay, so now we are going to move down to okay, just a yes, when I realized it, I didn't mention that. Excel will default change the color to blue when it is hyperlinked. That is a default feature. So it will basically bring attention that this cell is hyperlinked, and even if you hover over it, you will see that if you click on that, click wants to follow, or click and hold to select. So if you select that, an email will be generated, especially which is annoying, because I'll get an Excel file that has emails, and I want to select that cell, and then because my Outlook is connected to is synced with my Excel, it will automatically generate a email template with that email in there. So it can get annoying, but that is why it changes colors. Okay, and yes, if yours changed, sorry, the next thing is, if you select it, it will turn blue. I see mine, I never link it, and I don't use emails like that, but you see now that I selected it, it turned purple. So it basically, it just shows you that you've selected it. You've clicked it once and you've activated that hyperlink. Okay, so now I'm just gonna make it big again because I need a visibility. So we're gonna go now down to A13. Okay, just check there if you're A13, great. Or by the way, check this out. You could just type here A13 and press enter, and there you go. You are now in A13. And here's we're gonna go totals, press enter, which brings me to A14. I'm gonna type highest, highest. Then I'm gonna type lowest, and then I'm going to type average. Okay. Now, we are going to name this sheet. We're going to call it the salary report. Okay, so we're going to go down to the bottom here. We're going to right click that, click rename. Okay, salary report. Okay, so again, click that. You could actually double click it, or you could just right click it, rename. So once you rename it salary report, we're going to change the color to blue. Okay, so I want it blue. Again, I right click, tab color, blue. So we're talking exactly, it is the blue accent 1. Click that, and there you go. The tab has now been colored blue. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm gathering my thoughts because we're now going to start getting into entering formulas. Okay, and this is very fundamental to Excel. So it's very important that, I think for myself, to explain it in a way that you understand, and that when you are creating your own formulas, you understand how they work. Okay. I'm sorry, just give me a second. Okay. So when you're entering formulas, you want to make sure that the way you enter a formula is consistent and not dependent on other moving parts. In other words, let's talk about gross pay. Okay, I want to figure out gross pay. So how do I calculate gross pay? I'm going to multiply the hours worked by the hourly rate. Okay, so now I'll show you how to do it, right? So I could do it on a calculator, which is pretty simple. If I had a calculator, I have an Excel, it's a calculator. Let me pull up a calculator, right? So and this is my old school functionality. Where's it? There it is. Okay. Before I knew how to do formulas in Excel. Okay. So I have a calculator, and now, okay, so you worked for 74.5 hours times 35.25. And okay, their gross pay is 2,626, right? So 2,626.125. So let's round up 13 cents. Okay, so that's their gross pay. Now, obviously, what happens that helps me only for right now. But let's say I get an email and there was an accounting error, and you know what, Benny actually gets an hourly rate of $37, and they really worked only 70 hours. Well, I'm back to square one because I need to recalculate everything. And especially since I need to now recalculate gross pay, that means I'm going to have to recalculate the federal tax and the state tax percentage, pretty much everything, right? So when I'm creating this formula, I want to make sure that it is linked to the constant cells, the source cells, right? So I'm going to do equals because equals is my activator for a formula in Excel, okay? So I'm going to click, okay, I'm going to select D4 times 35, okay? As opposed to, because that gives me the same number. The difference is because, again, I could do a formula and say 74.5 times 35.25. That will give me the same number. But I will have the same problem because if at any point I change these numbers, this number is no longer valid because it's not actually connected to the cell, it's only connected to the number. And if you look at my formula bar, I just typed in the numbers. I don't want that. I want it to be connected to those cells. So, there we go, okay. Delete. Now I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna select cells, I'm not gonna type numbers. I'm gonna select D4, and I wanna multiply D4, which is our hours worked, by hourly rate, and I press enter, okay? So now these are synced to my other cells. So let's say I get an email and it says, hey, Benny only worked 70 hours. So I just type in 70 and boom, it adjusts my gross pay because that calculation is linked to my source, okay? What was it, 74.5? Bring that back up, okay? So that's really important when you're creating the formulas. Okay, now we're going to do the federal tax. Now, so for federal tax, there's a few logics here on how Excel calculates a formula. Okay, so this was a straightforward formula. It is a multiplication formula. It takes one number and multiplies it by a different number. However, now what I want to do is I have a few dependencies in this formula, so I need to control the way that this formula is being calculated, okay? So the way Excel and in math also is when you add parentheses, you are basically controlling what gets calculated first. Because when you do a parentheses, you are saying do the parentheses first before you multiply it on the larger scale. And let me show you the difference of what that would look like. So let me do equal, okay? Now, my federal tax, okay, is 0.26, which is 26%, okay, times my gross pay. Now remember, the gross pay is here, okay? So I'm not going to type out my gross pay. I'm going to select the cell, okay? So it times the gross pay minus my dependents, which is 3. Now I'm not going to type in 3. I'm going to select the cell times 22.16. Now, honestly, I'm not sure why that number. I looked it up. I know I think maybe it's $1. It's not a percentage, so I'm not sure what it was. I try to play around with it. Maybe if we have any accountants up here. Why 22.6? I'm not 22.16, but 22.16. Now watch what happens. $616 for my federal tax. And by the way, that's not correct. It's actually slightly more than that, by the way, believe it or not. So, because what I really wanted to do is, it's not in succession. The calculation should not be in succession. The calculation needs to be, it's 0.26 times let me show you how. Okay, so all I did here, because really this calculation is, I need to take my gross pay, I want to deduct 3 times 22.6. And that is the number that I'm going to be paying my federal tax on. So how do I control that? Is I add a parentheses. Okay, so let me do this again. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to do equal. Okay, so I do 0.26 I want to multiply this by 20.26, which is a representation of 26% of the gross pay deducted after I deduct my credit of my 3 dependents, okay? My credit of 3 dependents. So I want to do 0.26 multiply, okay? So now I'm telling Excel, I want you to multiply what I'm about to create in these parentheses. But first calculate what's in the parentheses and then multiply that by 0.26. So what am I doing? I'm taking the gross pay, I'm going to minus my dependents, and I'm going to multiply that by 22.16. Now I'm going to have to close. Watch, if I press enter, it tells me we found a typo in your formula and tried to correct it. What did it do? Notice it added a parentheses, because whenever you add a parentheses, you got to close it out. Otherwise, Excel doesn't know when to finish the formula. So here it says, hey, you forgot to do a parentheses. Do you want us to correct it? Yes. And then voila, that is your amount of money that you're going to pay. What is, the multiplication, by the way, is the asterisk. It's the little star on your numpad, or if you don't have that, where is it on your keyboard? It's above the number 8 as well. So it's either above your number 8, or if you have a numpad, it's the asterisk above the 9. So that's how you do a multiplication number, multiply in Excel, okay? Okay, so now watch this, by the way. Now, this is when you start making dependencies, and what's really cool is as you build out the formula, they're all linked together, because this formula is dependent on this formula, and this formula is dependent on these numbers, because these numbers are not formulas. So if I change the rate to $30, watch, boom. It now calculated both, it recalculated my gross pay, and it recalculated my federal tax, because my gross pay changed. You see? So it is really important that you keep your formulas, making sure they're connected to their source cells, so that it will save you all that time. It will save you all that time in recalculating over and over again. Okay, so the reason why you would have gotten, Naftali, the reason why you would have gotten 1.3, because it rounded up. Don't worry about, so you had already, look, I just removed the, here, you could add, decrease decimal or add decimals here. I mean, it's a dollar sign. We'll eventually convert it to a dollar, but in the meantime, I'm just gonna leave it as is. Okay, that's exactly what you wanted to get. Okay. Now, we're going to do the state tax, okay? Now, state tax is 5.5% from your gross pay, okay? So you want to do 5.5% times your gross pay is what your state tax is. So how do I do that? Now, by the way, if you notice, I'm not typing out 5.5%, okay? You need to type it out in the, I think they're called integers, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you want to count it out in the decimal in the fraction points. So I'm going to do period 0.55, okay? So that is my 5.5% equivalent. Okay, and I'm going to multiply that by my gross pay. Remember, I'm not going to type out my gross pay. I'm going to select the cell where the gross pay is located for row 4. Okay, so now 0.055 times 262613, which is F4, press enter, and that is how much my state tax is going to be in dollars. Okay. So I'll show it again. I just want to finish this line, and then we'll do it over again. So then, now what's the tax percentage? So now I want to know, at the end of the day, how much tax am I paying based on my gross pay? Okay, so how do I do that? I need to add the amount of tax I'm paying totally,
and then I need to divide that by the total gross pay, okay? So I'm dealing with two different calculations that I need to interact with each other. So what I'm going to start off with. So now in this scenario, I want to do one equation and then complete one equation, and then I want to go on to the next equation. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a parentheses, okay? This parentheses, I'm going to add my federal tax plus my state tax, okay? That's it. Then I'm going to close the parentheses because I want first Excel to first give me that total. Once Excel gives me that total, I want to divide that total by my gross pay, which will give me my percentage of how much tax I'm paying, okay? So then I divide, okay? Divide is the forward slant, divided by my gross pay. Now when I press enter, boom, that is my tax bracket of how much I'm paying my taxes. Thank you, Chaim. I just want to make a mention of Chaim. Chaim, maybe you could copy and paste that into the Zoom webinar chat as well. The order of operations. That's a good short term there. So you have PEMDAS. So you have parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So that's exactly the order in which Excel works. So once you know how that works, you'll know how to type out your equations exactly the way you need Excel to calculate them, okay? And now the net pay, this is pretty straightforward, right? The net pay is my gross pay minus the federal tax and my state tax, right? So now I'm going to do pretty much the same minus the division, the same way. I'm going to flip around my previous cell formula. So now I'm going to select gross pay, so F4 minus parentheses G4 plus H4. And that will be 1816, okay? Now I want to just try something. If I just do like this, right? 26 minus this minus this. Oh, okay. It does that as well. But the proper calculation, 18, 16, 18, does it get it exactly? 18, 16, 18, 1 second. Okay, so in that case, it is exactly the same. But the proper way to do that is, the proper mathematical way to do that is I want to combine the groupings in which I want to subtract it from. So I want to combine the federal and state tax, that total. I want to deduct that total from my gross pay, which my net pay is 1816.18. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull off a few shortcuts here, and then now let's do it again. Okay, so now we got our gross pay. Now I'm just gonna type it. I'm gonna say out loud what I'm doing, right? So my gross pay is my hours worked times the hourly rate, press enter, and check that out. Talk about a flash fill, FYI. We just experienced a really cool flash fill. Okay, okay, Paul, I'll show you. Okay, I'll do the equation for tax percentage again, but for those who are looking for a good example of flash fill, we just experienced one. Let me do it one more time. Watch, everyone watching, gross pay, I'm gonna, again, multiply hours worked by hourly rate, boom. That's flash fill at its finest. Because it recognized that this is the same, and now it just did it all for me. I didn't have to replicate that formula. Okay, so let's do tax percentage again, okay? So tax percentage is, I'm gonna delete that. My tax percent is the federal tax plus the state tax. So how much money am I paying? And I divide that by my gross pay, which will give me the percentage of how much of that is coming off of my gross pay percentage-wise, right? It tells me how big of a pie I pay the government. Okay, so I'm going to do equals. I want to add the federal tax, so G10 in this case, plus the state tax, which is H10, and then I'm going to divide those two numbers into 2,600. And when I divide that, it's going to give me a 0.30, which is 30%, 30.8, which is probably rounded up to 31%. Okay, now look here. If I want to see, now I'll show you how I'm going to use the lower bar. So what I'm doing is technically, if I want to see real quickly how much am I paying tax dollar-wise, I highlight here and I look at the bottom, $658.72. So 658, no, sorry, not the max, sorry. Sum, the sum here, $800. So I'm paying $801 in taxes. 800 out of 2,600 is about 30%. Okay, so that is how you do it. I'll go ahead and do the federal tax too again. I'm do it again here. So equals, I'm going to do again my hours worked times my hourly rate equals, I'm going to do each one separately again. I don't want the flash fill. So federal tax, my federal tax, this is a little more complicated. Remember, my federal tax is 0.26. Okay, so it's 26%, and I need to multiply my gross pay after my deductions. How do I get to my deductions? I do my gross pay, so it's F11, minus 2 dependents, okay, the number 2, minus my dependents, times 22.61 or 16. I think it's 16. I'll double check. As soon as I get this, we'll see right away. So 16, yeah, I got it right. Okay, good. Okay, my state tax, again, if you see here, that's my state tax. My state tax is 5.5% off of my gross. So how do I do that? I do equals 0.055. By the way, if I did 5.5, that's 55%. Not interested in giving 55%. So, oops, there we go. Okay, let's do this again. Equals 0.055 times my gross pay, 145. Then I'm going to do equals, what's my tax percentage? I want to add the federal tax plus my state tax divided by my gross pay equals 31. And my net pay is gross pay minus federal tax plus state tax. Okay, so I'm just going to do a real quick here. And there you have it. Okay, I'm going to take a minute here. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so this is to address all the flash fill. The flash fill, it's an intelligence that's integrated here. And by the way, look, autofill options. So you should, when autofill is active, it will show you this little button on the side. So if you see that button, you'll see fill formatting only, fill without formatting, okay, or copy cells. So it will automatically copy cells. Because you're creating all these formulas, Excel tries to make it easier for you, so they will select the flash fill. But if you did not get that flash fill, you could always just go like this So sorry, it's not. Sorry, it's the wrong term. It's all marketing. It's not flash fill. It's called an autofill. Okay, the autofill is just going to pick up that you are replicating or you're writing out formulas consistently, and it will just automatically fill it out once it picks up a pattern in that in those cells. And then you could manipulate how that does that. You could do fill formatting only, so it's just the formatting, or the fill without formatting, or you could just keep it as is. See, so here I did, 1 second, let's see, what is it? Okay, so if I just do fill formatting only, it's a calculation. So since it's a calculation, the only thing that lives in the Excel is the formula. So if I remove that format of that Excel, nothing exists. So if I do fill without formatting, that basically means it just returns it back to its original form, which is just a formula. Let me just see here. Quick analysis. No, that I don't want to do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my formulas. Okay, so this is the formulas that you should have. By the way, how do I say this? You could show formulas by control and I don't even know what this part on the keyboard is called, but right next to the 1, okay, you have like these 2 squiggly lines. Like one is like a kind of like a wave, and the other one is like a little bit like an inward eyebrow, like a mean looking eyebrow. So if you hold the control and select that button, you can show your formulas and remove your formulas. So sorry, not remove. You could hide the formulas. So now here it's showing me the formulas behind the number. So if there's no formula there, like for our hours worked and hourly rate, there's no formula. But if you notice, the gross pay, federal tax, these are all formulas that were entered, and I can now double check. So if you're having an issue with the formula, it's not calculating correctly, you could do control, I don't know, eyebrow, I don't know what it's called, sorry. And you'll be able to double check. And how do I double check the formula? If I click on it, I see, okay, the G6, which is the G6 here, which is my federal tax. I want to add also H6, which is my state tax, and I divide it by F6, which is my gross pay. That is the correct formula. And as I go down and as I click on a formula, it shows me right away, it highlights the cells in which I am formatting. And by the way, here, this is the formula behind the date. So somehow this is how Excel translates a date, and it converts that to this number into a date. So I hope that was helpful as far as figuring out the equation for the net pay or the tax percentage or anything. That's what it is. Again, the net pay is federal tax plus state tax. So it's gross pay minus federal tax plus state tax. So can you copy and paste? Yes, you may copy and paste. You could also duplicate, just drag down. You remember the little shortcut here? You drag it down and that duplicates the cells. You see, it does relative. It it becomes relative to the previous cell. So if this calculation was this row, then this does the exact same thing in the next row. So yes, that would be an easier way to duplicate your cells, your formulas in each of the cells. So as far as rounding off numbers, I guess it's all preference. It actually depends on how meticulous you need to be on those numbers. I mean, sometimes you're right. If you're talking dollars and cents, it doesn't make a difference if you have five decimals there. But sometimes when you're talking about maybe a calculation or a growth or a variance, every decimal point is significant, because that could be the difference between a growth or a decline. So that it depends on, again, your application. Okay, so again, how do you show the formulas? You hold the control button and the button that's right above the tab. So right above the tab, you have these two little upper dash symbols. Looks like that. You could, the button that makes these two shapes, okay? The button that makes these two shapes, okay? You just do control that, and then it shows you your formulas, and then you could review your formulas to make sure that they have been entered and completed properly, okay? Okay, so so the autofill is that this, you remember what I showed you before? I guess I honestly, I didn't know what it was called. So that this little black cursor there, right there, that is called the autofill selection. So when I go like this, it autofills all my formulas, and then at the bottom here, I could choose the type of autofilling it does. Do I want to copy the cells, fill, or fill without formatting? I hope that, I think, clarifies that. So it's called the autofill, not the flash fill. Two separate functions. Okay, so the flash fill is different, because if I do a formula like this, you see what it does? If I do autofill on the emails, it just drags down exactly what I had in the initial cell. It's not, there's no formula there, and it's not picking up any patterns. That would be the difference between when you would use flash fill and when you would use autofill. So flash fill is when you need a certain logic to be implemented based on what you did. So here I took the cell beforehand, and I made a certain logic out of that in this cell. So if I just do autofill doesn't notice any pattern at all, because there's no formula there. So it's just gonna literally just drag down the previous cell. But flash fill will figure out that, oh, there's a logic here. You took the first letter of the first name and the last name, and you put it together, and you created an email. So then it will duplicate that logic and create a full list of email addresses. So I hope that explains a little better the difference between a flash fill and an autofill. And maybe here also, what does it say? Automatically fill in values. Enter a couple of examples you want as output, and keep the active cell in the column you want filled in. So that's how Excel describes flash fill. Okay, so what I chose for the fill, I chose copy cells, which should be the default. See, if I look here, I drag it down, copy cells. I want it to copy the cell in its entirety. So whatever functions, whatever colors, whatever formats. If you notice also, even the decimals is the same in both, in all the cells that I duplicated like that. So just keep the copy cells. Okay, so Margalit, as far as, and in general, if you want to shrink the amount of decimal points, the quick way to do it is just go up in the number here, and here you have this function here, decrease decimal or increase decimal, just drop it down, or drop it up. So there you'll see right away how you decrease or increase. So yes, Jacob, as far as your formula, for first one, you could take the first formula you did and you could copy and paste it. I could do Control C and enter. And then if you notice, look, it's moving, it's duplicating it. So again, like I said in the beginning of this course, there's no right way to do things in Excel. There's just a bunch of different ways to do it. Now, sometimes there are correct ways to do it, but if you understand the way each of the functions works, you'll know what is the best way to do it. So, and I just speak for myself also. I mean, some of the stuff I just do because I find it easier than others. You know, like, yes, I could do Control C. I'm just find it much easier to just do the autofill, especially, you know, I'm dealing, you know, I could be dealing with a large Excel file with thousands of sheets, and it's really easy for me to just drag the autofill all the way down as opposed to, you know, copy and paste and bring it down. And that's just my preference. Someone may disagree and say, you know what? No, I like it. I like the control. I like to select it all to the bottom and then press enter. So it's all preference. That's what I've experienced and that's what I see. So whatever you're comfortable with, as long as it's giving you the calculation and keeping the calculation of what you want, then same difference. Okay. Now we're going to do totals, okay? So here's a couple totals, right? Hours worked, that can be a total. That's a, now how do we do totals? We learned this already, and this is pretty easy. This one is an Autosum, okay? So I want to be highlighted, make sure I'm on D13, okay? I'm at D13. I'm going to make it big again, maybe even a little bigger. There we go. Okay, I'm on D13. I see, just double check up there. I got D13, and I'm going to do an Autosum. Okay, so I could select. So there's a few ways to get here. I could do equals. Okay. But here, let's say I want to know what my formula functions are. So if I click here, right? So I'm highlighted. I click here, this FX button, insert function. Okay, it automatically creates that equal sign, and it brings up all these functions. Okay, so I want to a sum function, and by the way, it also shows you what the function does. And here's just a few of them. And notice there's categories, and we will actually explore a few different ones here throughout the next few classes. But it automatically goes to the most recently used, and I want a sum option. So here, adds all the numbers in a range of cells. Okay, I press OK. Now, it is asking me to select the cells for which I want to select, okay? So it's here. Now it is defaulted D4 to D12, okay? Now, I could sit here and say, okay, D4, D12, or while it's gray, I could just highlight them and say, okay, that's the ones I want. I want D4 to D12, okay? And it's even showing me the numbers, 74.5, 80, 71.75, 60, and it's telling me even the total as well before I press OK. And there I have 616.8 is my total, okay? Now, to do a auto sum with hourly rate doesn't tell me anything because everyone is different. Okay, so gross pay, yes, that gives me a accurate auto sum. So I'm going to go to function again. I'm going to click on the function because I want to show you how to enter these functions. I'm going to select on my sum function. Okay, and by the way, if you are looking for it, I think it's on math and trig. Oh no, this is, whew. It's in math and trig. It's alphabetical, and just go to sum. Okay, and press OK. Then notice it did F4 to F12 automatically. Again, Excel recognized the digits and it stopped by the header. Okay, and I know those are the correct ones, so I just click OK. And look at my autofill kicked in right there. Sorry, not my autofill. My state tax. My state tax was automatically calculated. Why? Because it auto-filled here, and it was 5.5% based on gross pay, right? But that's not the correct formula that I want. I don't want the state tax based on the gross pay. I want the total amount of state tax that I paid. They could be the same amount, but that's not how I want this to be calculated. I just want my auto sum, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and this time I'll just do the quick auto sum and press enter, and there I have it. And then I want the auto sum federal tax as well. And by the way, if you realized, the only calculation that auto-filled was the state tax, because the state tax, if you notice, is the only one that is limited to the gross pay. All the other ones have dependencies. All the other ones have other cells that it's calculating. So Excel knew that I can't autofill for G13 for my federal tax because it doesn't follow all the formulas that are current in the previous calculations. So it didn't autofill it for me. And same with my tax percentage. My tax percentage, it relies on the federal and state tax. So because those formulas, those things were not included, it did not do the autofill because there was no federal tax here. But here, now I'm going to do an autofill here, press enter, and look what happened. It did my tax right away because now it realized, hey, the federal state tax and the federal tax and the state tax are filled. Hey, I could autofill that because I have all these, I have the variables that I need to make this calculation, okay? But the tax percentage, that doesn't help me. I'm just going to delete that, okay? So, but if you had an autofill on your net pay, then you've had that automatically, okay? But now I do want to figure out the tax percentage, and by the way, again, if it autofilled, great. Otherwise, just drag it down, and there is my tax percentage based on. And what did I do there? I just did my autofill down, and now it's calculating my total state tax versus my Autosum federal tax plus with the gross pay. Okay. Okay. Let me see if we have a few questions. Okay, Beryl, the specific reason why I did that was just to show you how to do that. It does work for Autosum, because Autosum is one of your quick, most popular functions. And it does do it with a few other functions that we're going to use. But as we get into a little much more enhanced calculations, you will need to know how to use that function button. Okay. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend, I'll show you one more, I'll show you, I'll go for another 8 minutes, and then I will do questions, because I don't want to do too much more, because we start getting into more formulas and formatting, and I don't want to get stuck in the middle there. Okay. So I'll just show you. We're going to use the max function. So the max function is, it takes a group of cells and it shows me what is the highest cell. Okay. Now, if you saw already, I did add that function under here at the bottom. But that's nice to know if I highlight over it. I want to be able to enter that as a formula in the sheet itself. Okay. So my computer's making funny noises. Oh. Okay. Let's start off with dependence. Okay. So my dependence, I want to know who has the most dependence, right? So I'm going to do equal. And the truth is, I know it's a max. I know it's max. So I could type in max. Returns the largest value in a set of values, ignores logical values in text. Okay, that's one way to do it. This feature also is part of an Autosum, is part of here. So I'll do max. And if you notice, it automatically selected the above cells. Now, I don't want it to select C13, okay? So I could do a few things. I could delete that and do C12. I could delete all this, and with my white cursor, just highlight over, and we'll keep it at that. And my highest, the person with the most dependence on this team has 3 dependents. That's the most that we're dealing with, okay? So now we could do that for the hourly rate as well. What is the highest salary that I'm paying out? Okay, so the highest salary that I'm paying out is equals max parentheses, because when I do parentheses, when I'm typing a formula, it now is waiting for me to give the array of cells that I want it to calculate, and I will highlight these, close it out, and there my highest hourly rate is $41. Now I could just do a quick trick here and just drag and check it out. You see, max. I replicated my formula there. Excuse me. Okay. Now let's go on to the next line, because the truth is, let's finish up here. Let's go like this. Federal tax, who's paying the most federal, who's paying the most stat, tax percentage, net pay, okay? So this shows me the highest number in each of these cells, okay? So now I wanna know who's the lowest, okay? The lowest, so I do equals. Now I know the lowest refers to min, like M-I-N. Okay, so again, there's a few ways to get there. I could type it in. If I begin typing that, I will get options. I also have the min function here. But again, I'm gonna type it in and do min. And if you see right away, as I type, Excel recognizes that there's a functional format or a formula with that name. And there's a few of them. You have min A, and if I continue typing, then it tells me min A returns the smallest value in a set of values, does not ignore logical values in text, and here ignores logical values in text. So there is a difference in these two types of minimal amounts. Now, honestly, I've never used the min A before, so apparently it doesn't ignore. So go ahead and play around with that. What would that mean as far as impact on your calculation? And then you have minutes and minute verse, but let's keep it at min. I'm going to open my parentheses. I'm going to highlight the cells that I want it to calculate. I'm going to close my parentheses, press enter, and the lowest is 0, okay? Okay, I'm gonna show you one more formula and then we're gonna call it a break. We're gonna call it a night. So if you got everything you need after this formula, awesome. If not, stick around, I'm gonna be answering questions, okay? So the next formula, if you haven't figured out already, is our average, okay? So average is exactly the formula that it's called. It's called the average formula, all right? So I'm gonna do equal and just start typing average, okay? That's one way to do it. Okay, we'll do it this way first, average. And right away, as I start typing it out, it gives me a bunch of different types of averages. Average A, average if, average ifs. Those are dependency arguments. But here returns the average. And just in case, again, if you want to know what the formula does, the rules of this formula returns the average, arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers or names, arrays or references that contain numbers. So it's an average of numbers, okay? So average, open parentheses, select, close, and it's 1.444444. And the reason why there's that many is because currently my cells are set up to have, I guess, 5 decimal points. So if I want to know the average, I could just schlep it across. And here and the lowest, the min, schlep it across. Okay, I'm gonna show you again, don't worry, I promise. But that is where we're gonna be. Make sure you save it. That's a wrap for that's all the new stuff we're gonna learn today, okay? So if you're good, if you're happy, if you're satisfied, you have no questions, enjoy, play around. We'll see you Monday night again. Otherwise, I'll show you the formulas again, and then you could go ahead and keep asking questions. And also, I will remind everybody that the challenge, you know what, I realize also I should include it in my weekly reminders about the class, that the last class that I want to do is, as a culmination of Excel, is to show you, number one, how to use pivot tables, and more importantly, I want to use real life scenarios with you, the students, the participants of this class. So I'll write in the email also, but if you have data that you deal with on a daily basis, or you've come across Excel files that you really wish you knew how to better sort through them and understand how to break them down, the data that's on that file, please email it to me. And of course, if it's confidential, if it's sensitive information, I will change it and make sure and send it back to you to make sure that it's all kosher and it's all good, and we're not going to give away anyone's personal or private information. But I think that is a great culmination for this course that you all stuck around with and you participated in for the last good couple weeks. It is my hope that you've gained lots of tools and you'll really feel very confident and competent using the Excel software. Okay. So with that, let me go ahead and, first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at some questions here. Okay. Okay, so let me show you how I got my min, my max, and my average. Okay, so for my max, okay, notice here my formula bar here, I have max. So let's say I wanted to do max differently, okay? I'm going to go to my formula entry point, and I'm gonna go to most recently, and I have max. Okay, I select max, returns, is this the max? Yeah. Returns the largest value in a set of values. Okay, ignores logical values in text. Okay, so I press OK, and automatically it is now selected cell C4 through C13. And by the way, if you notice, the way Excel shows you that it's a succession of cells is that it puts the I think are those calls semicolon in between. No, those are decimal points. Sorry, I haven't been to English class in a long time. I just know what they are. The two dots on top of each other, or shava in Hebrew. So you put the colon in the middle. So C4 colon C13. Excel translates that as all the from its what's the word? It's ad v'chlal, right? It's up to and including. So it's the cell that I write and all the cells in between the two cells. Okay, so this one, there is no cell, there is no data on C13, so I don't want it to include C13. So the simple way to do it is I could just delete the 13, type 12, and press enter, and then if I double click, I could see right away the formula. I see the formula is selected these cells here, press enter, and I'm like, okay, that works. And by the way, watch this. The reason why I don't want that cell highlighted, because watch what will happen. Look, so my max, so this is my maximum. If I included C13, right, and it's really inconsequential to the dependence because there's no formula in that cell, right? So big deal. Now, if I drag it over, look what it does. Okay, it pulls my maximum on gross pay, maximum federal tax, maximum state tax, which, by the way, what do you think it is? It's my total. It's my total number, because that obviously is the most because it's including everything. So that's not my right calculation. So in such a case where, let's say I decided, you know what, I just need to fix this, right? So I could go into the formula, delete the 12, enter 13, and voila. Now look at this guy here. You see? It's telling me it's an inconsistent formula. The reason being, it realized that I created a formula that skipped a succession of the cells. And also, it's realizing that this cell is C13, but this cell is F12, is still 12. So it picked up that there is a discrepancy between my cell, my formula in C14 and my formula in F14. Because according to Excel, it's the exact same formula. It's the maximum formula. So in this scenario, it doesn't help me. However, it is helpful to appreciate when you see this inconsistent formula, realize what it's telling you. It's telling you that there was a formula that was generated beforehand and it's inconsistent because here my maximum hours is 616, which that's the total. So let's delete that. Now watch, if I do this 12, okay, and now I drag this formula here, you see that little green box disappeared because now all the formulas are exactly the same minus this guy. This guy's still sitting here at cell 13. So it picked up that these are all the same formulas and I'm not getting any inconsistent formula there. Okay. All right. And again, for average is the same situation. You type in average and make sure you are selecting C4 through C12. And you just go ahead and drag that along along the bottom, and then you will have your formula duplicated in all the right cells selected. Just go ahead and save that. Now let me work. Okay, let me see what's going on here. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay, Dennis, I see your message. I'm gonna keep it open because after I finish the Q&A, I'll go ahead and send. I'll send the email to you, and I'm guessing. I'll just double check the email that I have to make sure, because I believe I did send you that link. So I'll double check afterwards. Okay, so let me just move up here. Okay, so if Khani, and I guess anyone who's having an issue with duplicating the formula, number one, make sure that you have the black cursor there, which is your autofill cursor. So for starters, so make sure that whatever cell that you are autofilling has the correct formula inside, and you're schlepping it, because if I just slap it like this, it's not going to do anything, right? If I just, let's say, delete here, okay, and if I go here, just schlepping like that, it's not going to do anything. It's just highlighting those cells, right? What I need to do is make sure that my black cursor is over that, and then I select it, then it will duplicate and autofill my cells. Hope that answered your question. Okay, so I think, Beryl, you mentioned that you got that resolved, okay? About the average, you got that error. So if, just in general, if you see an error that basically, so here, let me see if I could get an error here. That should do it. No, it just reset it. Oh, it didn't know what to do with it because it duplicated. Hold on, let me go like this. Let's see if it figures it out. Let's see if I try something else here. Oh, okay. It's only picking up. It's only picking up. Oh, maybe here. I'll go here. So, okay. I guess maybe that's what it means by average. It only picks up the numbers that I'm selecting. So, but if you do get like this funny name, like this hashtag name and question mark, that means there's an error in. Let's see if I do Autosum here, maybe. Oh, 0. Anyway, right now I'm not doing so well in getting errors, but if you get that it's an error, just double check your formula. So Mayor, yeah, I'll be happy to email the formula to you, but I also actually in my Excel file in the documents that I included, I actually included the formulas that you would need to know in the tips. Let me actually go open it. I'll show you. Let me open that up here. Hold on. Where is it? Excel module tool. Hold on a second. So, okay. So here, if you see, I know it's a little blurry, sorry. If you see, this is the module 2 tips. This is spelling out the formulas for each of the rooms. Okay, so the header names, it's not telling you the cells, but it's telling you the header names. So you would select the appropriate row for each of the formulas to make sure that you get that in right. Hopefully that will be helpful, just so you could double check to make sure that you're doing the correct calculations. Okay, so here I have a question. You have okay, Margalit, you have a question about email addresses. How do you choose different formats? For example, last name with starting letter S, they have the same format. Last name with starting letter W, different format. Okay. The same last name starting S should follow the email. I'm sorry. I'm reading your question and I'm not following it. Okay, so you have that email, Slami CB Moves and Warren Gmail. Now the same last names starting S should follow the email, and W should follow the Gmail. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. I apologize. Okay. Let me see. You want to see the formula for tax percent net pay? So tax percent net pay is the federal tax plus the state tax in parentheses, because I need to add those two together, then divide that total by my gross pay. And that will give me my percentage of tax that I paid. I'll just double click that, highlight it again. So you just match up the colors. So G4, which is my federal tax, I add also my state tax in parentheses, because I'm telling Excel, I want you to first calculate these two cells and then divide that total by my gross pay, and that gives me my tax percent. Okay. Is there a way to copy? Okay, Khani, is there a way to copy and paste numbers from a cell without copying the formula? Yes. I'll show you how to do that. So we kind of touched upon that last class, but I think here is a little more, here's like a better use case. Okay, so here, I want to copy, this is the amount, let me zoom out a little bit, sorry. Okay, I know this number, 514.56, is the federal tax for Olga, right? And I want to send her, just real quickly, this number, right? So if I copy and I paste, it doesn't work for me. I want the number, right? So what I do is, let me delete that. What I do is I Control C, but when I'm about to paste, I right click, okay? When I right click, I have my paste options. I could just click the value, okay? And then there I have. Now it's just a value, and if I look up on top, it's no longer a formula. So if I change this number to 70 hours, that will change, but this won't, okay? So that's on a singular level. But if you want to, let's say, copy all of this, no problem. Let me just go like this. Watch. Voila. Now you notice that it removed all formulas, even the hyperlink. But by the way, watch. I press enter and it activates it again. Ah, no. Oh, because when I press enter, because it's still highlighted. So every time I press enter, it's going to, it's still selected. So I unselect, I press escape. So if I go in this cell and I press enter, or I double click on the cell, it will then show me that it's a hyperlink. So those are the two ways that, see, notice all these numbers are no longer a formula, they are static numbers. And here, this is also the formula date. I could just go in here and change that to a short date, and there you have it. Okay, I hope that answered your question. Got it. Okay, so you want to create a conditional flash fill. So based on the first name, first letter of a name depends on the email account that you want to put in. So that's a conditional flash fill. Let me see if I could, one second. Oh, you know what? What happened? Oh, come on. See, it just totals lowest. Okay. So let's see this one. Okay. So let's play around with this one. I have, okay. So let's use your examples. So I have Samsung, Sony, Walmart, Walrus, Sammy, Samantha, whatever, doesn't matter. Will, and Walter. Okay. Now, let's see what happens. Okay, so you want, let's say, so for anything with S at Gmail and anything with W at AOL, and then Samsung at Sony, sorry. Let's see if we can figure it out. You see, what I'm doing is I am doing a few of the entries to see if now, I'm doing a few of the entries to see now if it will figure, my Excel will figure out my pattern. So now let's see, flash fill. Okay, so you see what it said here. Brand, email. You see what it said? It said it could not, it didn't, it looked at the data and it couldn't figure out, you see, we looked at the data next to your selection and didn't see a pattern for filling in values for you. To use flash fill, enter a couple examples. So I guess my point is that you would need to create a certain logic and basically teach Excel what you're trying to do, and then it can figure it out. So I don't know how to figure that out, or I'm not gonna sit here and try to figure it out now. But I think you can do it. You just got to figure out how to interpret that over to Excel that it understands what you're trying to do. Okay, I think that is a wrap. I gotta wrap it up here. Hope everyone had a good time. Hope you learned something. I'm going to send out a few of these emails here. But just go ahead and save your file, and we will continue next Monday evening. All right? Yes, next Monday is our next class. All right, have a wonderful evening, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you for participating. And yes, have a wonderful Shabbos.